I'm disappointed in you, Davad Restart.
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
Welcome back to another episode of Is Fitz Happy? I'm Luke.
And I'm Emma.
And this week we are picking up where we left off. This is part 2 of chapter 18, Wishes Fulfilled of Madship. We're going to dive right back in. We left off with the Vestrit family in Trader Restart's carriage on their way to the Bingtown Trader meeting. Davad had just gotten finished telling the rumor that he has heard that Satrap Cosgo was on his way to Bingtown. He wasn't just sending a courier, he was coming himself, which surprised all of them, of course. However, they were interrupted as they had just arrived to the concourse itself and were getting ready to disembark.
Davad has to help push the door from the inside as his servant pulls from the outside.
Yeah.
And almost falls out of the carriage, which Althea stops and gets him upright again, and then notices that Greg Tanier is waiting for her, and he seems to have been on the lookout for her.
Yep. At the top of the steps outside the trader's concourse, he's loitering. She describes what he's wearing and says that it showed a substantial amount of well-muscled legs and sandaled feet. Somehow he managed to look both the daring sailor and the serious trader. He was, she admitted to herself, a very handsome man.
I, cannot get over the image of Greg Tanier, just this big beefy muscly boy in sandals with bare legs. Is he wearing anything under this trader's robe? Is anybody, or is this robe the outfit? You know what I mean?
I think it's the outfit.
You don't wear anything under it? Whatever the equivalent is underwear. Yeah. But that is so funny to me. I don't know why, but that image just sends me into a fit of giggles every time. And I'm here for it. I love it. I love that he girt his skirt so that he's wearing it in the old seafarer style, which means that he's wearing a mini skirt in my mind. It's tied to the side in a little mini skirt fashion. Love it. We love to see it.
Upon seeing him, she thinks about the message that he had sent back after she sent him one about Vivacia, saying that his immediate reply had been as warm and supportive as she could wish. He would stand beside her and even do his best to see that she received time to speak at this meeting. He had written that his family and Ophelia shared her concern for Vivacia. So we have full support from the Tanieras as well.
Right.
So she quietly excuses herself from everybody and rushes up to meet Greg. And as he straightens, he murmurs, "I should have thought to send a carriage for you. Next time I shall." "Oh, Greg, it's only Davad. He's been a family friend for a long time. He would be very hurt if I refused to ride with him. With friends like that, it is no wonder the Vestrit fortune is foundering," Greg observed tartly. For an instant, her heart turned to ice. How could he imply such a thing? But his next words reminded her of how grievous his own situation was, and her feelings toward him softened. He talks about Ophelia, excuse me.
I need Althea to be so serious right now. What do you mean, how could he say that? You know exactly how it looks to be seen with Davad.
Literally just thought about it.
Yeah, I can't believe he would say the thing that I thought in my head less than an hour ago.
Although he does go a little bit further and just imply that the whole fortune is foundering because they're keeping Davad as a friend.
I mean, fair. But still, is he wrong? Yes, it's not Davad's fault. But, I mean, maybe the Vestrits would be in better standing politically and publicly if they didn't stand so fiercely with Davad after everything. It just, actions speak louder than words. And the Vestrits are saying, we don't like slavery. And then also have a son-in-law who's using the family ship to be a slaver and friends with the dude who's bringing slavery to Bingtown.
Right.
Which is it, you know?
So Greg turns to Ophelia and says that she's completely bored She wants to sail again, and she begs that I find a way for you to come along. I told her I could think of only one. He grinned engagingly at her.
Again? Althea? Touch grass. I don't know what is up with this girl.
And that was, she asked curiously.
And in her brain, she's so excited. She's like, oh, he's going to hire me to be a mate aboard the ship. He's going to give me a job. I'm so excited. I mean, obviously things will be a little complicated right now, but I'm going to get a job on Ophelia. That's so exciting.
He reddened and looked aside, but the smile still played about his mouth. A hasty wedding and a bridal voyage. I suggested it in jest, of course. Such a scandal as that would raise. I expected Ophelia to scold me roundly. Instead, she thought it a wonderful idea. He gave her a sidelong glance. Incidentally, so did my father. She brought it up to him, not I. He paused and looked at her expectantly as if he had asked her a question, but he had not directly. Which, true. That is true. It was that's very passive of you, Greg.
Greg, man up. Just a little bit. I don't say that,
but also,
but like
bad time.
Bad timing, but like
very bad timing.
Why would you? That's not a proposal. And why would that be the way that you're like fishing to see if she wants it? Like, no, buddy. You're better than this.
Yeah. She can't keep the confusion from her face because, she can't accept such an offer while her own family liveship is in danger, of course. Her distress only deepened when she glimpsed Brash and Trell standing at the bottom of the steps to the concourse. Their eyes met, and for an instant she could not look away.
And she still doesn't say anything. Like,
so Greg's just sitting there like, I don't truly expect you to consider it, he said hastily. He tried not to look hurt. Not here, not now. We both have too many other concerns just now. Tonight may resolve some of them. I hope it does. As do I, she responded. But it was difficult to put much warmth into her voice.
It's so hard. I think this is why I really don't like Althea right now. Just let him go, babe.
Yeah.
You don't like him at all. You can't even muster a fake courteous, haha, good joke. Anything. Instead, you just ignore him and then look at some other dude with confusion on your face.
Greg right there is completely shut down, and he's trying to sound like he's not very hurt. And then she says, too much was going on behind his shoulder. Brashen looked at her as if she had stabbed him to the heart. Oh, so you notice that Brashen feels hurt.
But not Greg. My boy, Greg. I can't. It's hard because Greg is kind of a bit of a dunce here for thinking that this is appropriate timing at all.
What a great proposal, too.
Also, no. Why would you do that? Like, he's making bad choices too. But for some girl, that would be perfect. It's just not Althea. And
that's fine.
It's fine.
But Althea should be better.
She should cut it off. She knows she doesn't like him. And I don't understand why she can't just admit that. Maybe because if she admits she doesn't like him, she has to admit that means she likes Brashen, which is not true. You can not like people equally. I mean, obviously she does like Brashen, but just because you cut off ties with Greg doesn't mean that means you have to go straight to Brashen. I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like that she's toying with our boy Greg. It's not nice.
Mm-hmm. Then we find out that, Greg is kind of upset that Brashen is there. He's like, what is he doing here? I think everyone kind of feels a little, Brashen is the bad boy reject. He has bad influence.
To be fair, Greg is the same age as Brashen.
Yeah.
They went to school together, and Brashen for sure got Greg into trouble when they were kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not like there's no reason.
Yeah.
Also, Althea talks about Brashen a lot and is always defending him, and now is sitting here staring at Brashen instead of him after he's just kind of sort of proposed to her.
Right.
So I don't know. I get it.
And then we find out that Amber's there with Brashen. Is that Amber with him? Why is she here? Why are they together? Althea had to look. I don't know, she murmured.
Quick question. Do we get confirmation one way or the other if Amber goes into the Trader Council?
I do not know. Not sure.
Okay. Because if she does, what are the rules? If she doesn't, why doesn't Althea see her when she leaves the hall?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
But Amber is staring daggers at Davad Restart. Some vexatious fate had ordained that every facet of Althea's life would collide with every other tonight. Davad Restart had fixed his eyes on Greg Tanira. He was hastening toward them. But before Davad can get up there, Ronica and Kefria get up there with Malta, and Ronica looks directly in Greg's eyes. My daughter Althea may sit with you, Greg, if you wish. I know you have important matters to discuss. Greg bowed formally. Ronica Vestrit, you honor the Taniras with your trust. I vow we shall be worthy of it. I, too, thank you for allowing this, Althea replied formally to her mother. She had to admire the woman's foresight. Now she could take Greg's arm and steer him into the hall before Davad puffed up to them. At least that confrontation would be avoided. She tries not to think of how that would look to Brashen hurrying Greg away on her arm.
Right. Then she also notes that it is trader tradition to sit with the family of somebody that you're seriously courting.
Yeah,
so
and it's public knowledge now.
Yes. If Althea sits here, it means that she is publicly announcing that she and Greg are courting each other and that they are in a serious relationship, which instantly makes her want to run away from the situation. But she decides that'll look worse because it'll look like they had a disagreement. So she decides to just grin and bear it. She'll suck it up. It's fine. But I do just want to say, didn't Althea just say she doesn't want to be a woman who is seen as jumping from man's opinion to man's opinion?
Right.
Why wouldn't she sit by herself or with her family?
Well, she was comparing that to Davad Restart and hoping that him arriving with her did not overshadow what she was saying.
Right.
So she didn't want to look like she was going from Davad Restart's side, and then when she goes over to Greg, she's taking his side. So she's just hoping that no one brings up the Restart thing.
I don't know. Either way, it feels like she could have stayed with her family if she wanted to stay away from being seen in the light of being with a man, especially because she talks so much about wanting to be her own person and she wants to be seen as Althea Vestrit, not the men around her, which is totally fair and valid and should happen. Obviously, it's not going to because that's not how this society works. But you'd think there'd be something she could do to not make it worse than it already is. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe there was no good option here. But it's also weird to me that she is fine to pretend that they're seriously courting each other in this moment when she knows she doesn't like him.
Right.
I don't know.
She gets brought over to his family, and she is uncomfortable with how quickly they're claiming her. But they're all there to support her. The sister, her mother, Greg's mother. Everyone is just like, yep, we're here all together, and this is going to be wonderful. And she's just like, I just kind of ignored your son's proposal, so
yeah, Althea,
maybe I shouldn't be claimed.
Althea is so interesting because she keeps making all the choices that will shackle her down and constrain her, and choosing people and paths that lead her to the point of not being able to make her own decisions or be as independent as she wants to be, and then being really upset that she can't make her own decisions and isn't as independent as she wants to be. I just don't understand why she feels like that makes sense.
Right. Well, we get a little look into the Traders Council now, and we get noted that all of the Trader Council members have ascended the dais, and they wear white robes to indicate that they have surrendered their family allegiances for now, for the purposes of these meetings.
How do you think the white-robed people get selected? Is this like a vote?
I guess voting.
Okay.
That would be my guess.
How often do you think they vote?
No idea.
Either way, there's also people in black robes, which indicates that they're the bouncers, basically.
Yep.
So if things get rowdy, they're the peacekeepers and will eject people.
Out. Yeah. She is scanning the council members and doesn't really recognize any of them. and she thinks that her father would have known which were his allies and which his opponents. She had no such expertise. The chimes that indicated the beginning of the meeting rang. Voices quieted. Althea breathed a brief prayer to Sa to guide her words. She could have made it a much longer prayer. In a wordy opening speech, the council had declared that there were several topics to cover, so he thought it best to dispense with the simpler disputes first. Althea lifted a querying eyebrow at Greg. She thought this meeting had been specially requested to hear the Tenira family concerns. He knit his brows and gave a small shrug. And so there are a couple small disagreements that need to be worked out first, and they take a while.
Yeah, the first disagreement is that there is a stream/river that runs through two properties, and one side says they need the water to divert to their crops, and the other side says they need the water to give to their cows, and they can't decide who gets claim to the river because they both think it's theirs. And so the council says, obviously you both need to use it then, and devotes 3 people to the cause of figuring out how to best divide the water to make sure they're not interfering with each other, which is the quick version. And then the next problem arises, and it's not as quick. Apparently, one of the traders' prized bulls had gotten out of its pen and impregnated the stock of cows next door that was a different trader's cows. And both say that they're the victim. The owner of the bull says that he is owed stud fees, and the owner of the cows says that the bull owner was neglectful in keeping the fence put together, and he wanted to breed with a different stud, and so he's lost the profit now, and these won't be good. And eventually they decide whenever the babies are born, the profit must be split between the two. And that's how that's solved.
So finally, we get to the Tenira family, and the head of the Bingtown Trader Council announces that. And no sooner had the head of the council announced this than a trader stood to address the council. They recognized Trader Daw, who spoke his obviously rehearsed words quickly. This is not a proper matter for the Traders' Council. Trader Tenira's grievance is with the Satrap's Tariff Office, not with another trader. He should take it up with them and let the council devote its precious time to matters that concern us all. With a sinking heart, Althea noted that Davad Restart was seated right next to Daw, nodding soberly to his words. Tomi Tenira stood. The old sea captain's taut shoulders strained the sleeves of his trader's robe. His fists were knotted at his sides. He strove to keep the anger from his voice. When was the Traders' Council reduced to a nanny quelling squabbles between siblings? What is the Traders' Council if not Bingtown's voice? The grievance I present is not between the tariff officer and me. It is about an unjust tax levied against all ship owners. Our original charter called for 50% of our profits to go to the satrap's coffers. Outrageous as that is, our forebears agreed to it, and I willingly abide by it. However, nowhere in that charter are these tariffs mentioned. Moreover, no document anywhere says that we must tolerate murdering, thieving Chalcedean mercenaries in our harbors. Tomi Tenira's voice had begun to shake with fury. He strangled into silence, trying to regain control of himself. Davad Restart came to his feet. Althea felt ill. So he basically says that all Jamalian merchants pay these tariffs. Why should we be any different? He's our good and just ruler. We need to help him with fees and all this sort of stuff.
The fees benefit everyone. It goes to upkeeping the dock in Jamalia.
And then also saying the very qualities Trader Tenira disparages in the Chalcedeans are those that make them excellent defenders against piracy. If he does not care for their services, then perhaps he should. The Chalcedean patrol ships are no more than pirates themselves. They stop legitimate ships with no other intent than extortion. All here know how my live ship Ophelia was injured defending herself from such an unwarranted intrusion. Bingtown ships have never willingly submitted to being boarded by foreigners. Are you suggesting we accept it now? The tariffs began simply as reasonable fees. Now they are so complicated to figure that we must accept the word of a hired scribe as to what we owe. The tariffs have one purpose only, to make it unprofitable for us to trade anywhere except Jamelia City. They steal our profits to bind us more tightly to their purse strings. Anyone who has tied up in Jamelia recently can testify that the charges we are paying are not going for dock maintenance there. I doubt if anything has been spent on those docks in the last 3 years. A general rumble of agreement with some laughter followed his last statement. My ship's boy damn near fell through the last one we tied up to, someone in the back called out. And Daw stands up again, saying, I suggest we adjourn before we hear any more about this matter, before you accept any more testimony, to see if we should even continue talking about it. Evening draws close to night. Perhaps we should save this matter for a later meeting. And the council kind of disagrees whether they should hear more about it, so they recess to talk about that.
Right. They go into their private room to argue freely.
And so the room is a little less patient than the waiting that they had for the other two matters. And groups of people start to form, talking.
Yeah, so this whole thing, it really goes to show how things are right now. There is a lot of unrest. It's really precarious. And nobody is quite sure who they're supporting, I think.
Yeah, it's quite divided, and people have strong opinions on all the different matters.
Yes, as people normally do.
There is a trader that comes up to the Tenira family, specifically Trader Larfa, who has a live ship Winsome, and says that, yeah, we stand with you, and if you want right now, we'll go and take Ophelia off the tariff dock right now, me and my sons.
Yeah, and we'll get him the old-fashioned way, but Tomi says that he prefers to wait and see if this can be settled as a group the way he thinks it should be before he takes matters into his own hands.
He wants this to be a Bingtown matter and not a Tenira family matter.
Yes.
But he wouldn't be alone. There was another family that offered up as well. And Tenira is hoping it doesn't come to that. At that moment, a shouting match broke out elsewhere in the room. Althea half stood and craned her neck. She could see little due to others standing up between her and the dispute, but it seemed to center where Traders Davad Restart had been seated. You liar, someone accused. You did, and you know you did. Without you, the damn new traders would never have become so deeply entrenched here. Another voice muttered a bland denial. The council's order keepers were already moving to quell the disturbance. Althea felt her nails bite into her palms. The room was on the edge of breaking into violence, trader against trader. This serves no one, she heard herself announce bitterly. By chance, her voice had sounded in a lull in the noise. Heads turned toward her. Even Greg and Tomi Tenira were looking at her in astonishment. She took a breath. If she waited, the council might well adjourn for the night. Precious time would be lost. This might be her only chance to speak. And so she does.
Yeah. So who do you think is talking to Davad here, and why?
Could be anybody. There's a bunch of unnamed traders.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Someone who's on the side of the Teniras and the Vestrits.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But what is he lying about? That's all I want to know. Like,
probably saying that he didn't work as a go-between or something like that.
Fair enough.
It's like, no, I didn't do that, you know. But Althea is speaking up here, and she's speaking some sense, and people start to listen. Saying, look at us. We squabble like children, trader against trader. Ask yourself who wins that battle. We need to find agreement here. We need to speak of the larger matter that confronts us. What is Bingtown becoming? Are we going to bow our heads to the satrap's rules, accept his tariffs and restrictions no matter how heavy they become? Will we tolerate his hirelings tying up in our harbor? Will we pay to feed and outfit them so they can stop our ships and fleece them before they reach port? Why? Every eye in the room had turned to her, some people resuming their seats, willing to hear what she had to say. She glanced down at a seated Greg. He gave her a nod of encouragement. She felt his mother reach up and take her hand. She gave it a squeeze before releasing it. Althea felt heady with power. My father told me 2 years ago that it would come to this. I am not the trader he was, but I do not hesitate to repeat his wisdom. A time will come when Bingtown must stand on its own and determine its own future. That is what he told me. I think that time is now. She looked around the room. Keffria, hand over her mouth, stared at her in horror. Davad's face was as red as a turkey's waddle. Some women looked scandalized that one of their sex should speak out so in public. But other traders nodded, or looked seized by her words. She drew another shuddering breath. There is too much we can no longer tolerate. These so-called new traders usurp our lands. They know nothing of our ancient sacrifices, nothing of our blood bonds with the Rainwild traders. They mock our laws with their tattooed slaves. The satrap is no longer content with half our profits. He will take all we have bought with blood and sell it for coin to his new friends, be they new traders or Chalcedean privateers. You're talking rebellion, someone in the back of the room accused. Something inside her turned over. Step forward and admit it, she counseled herself. Yes, I am, she said calmly. She was unprepared for the hubbub that broke out.
And because of all this, now the peacekeepers are coming towards her to eject her.
But folks were not stepping aside and legs were thrust out or benches shoved in their paths. Nevertheless, eventually they would reach her.
Right.
She had a few more moments. And this, you're super annoyed by like other aspects of Althea. I am super annoyed all the time by this aspect of her. She doesn't know when to stop.
Yeah.
She's way too impulsive, way too greedy and self-centered in her thoughts of what should be heard.
Yeah.
She always sabotages herself with another comment.
Yeah.
And it's consistent throughout the whole trilogy, and it's so annoying to me.
She's always so close, too. It's
She's
always
so
like,
close.
if
People
you stopped
were
here...
supporting her.
Yeah, people were in awe. And sure, yeah, some of the women were like, oh my God, a woman speaking? No. But the men were respecting her. And I mean, I shouldn't say it like that, but the guys with power were like, you can have power too. For just a moment, she had a taste of what it could be if she had a head on her shoulders with sense
some
in it.
restraint. But instead, she adds on her personal plight.
Which, to be fair, I think she's panicking in this moment.
Yeah, definitely. That's what she came there to do. That's what she was rehearsing in her head for. Right. But still, like, it's not the right time.
I don't know. I think she could have brought this up. I think her last couple lines are where it's over the line. Because I think it is a good point to bring up, look, the pirates are so bad that they've taken a live ship. And do you really think Jamalia is going to do anything to give that back to us? No. That's where you stop. But she just keeps going about how that affects her and how that's important that everybody help her for that reason.
My father's ship, the Vivacia, a live ship of Rainwild make, has been taken by pirates. I know that some of you have heard the rumors. I stand to tell you it is the truth. The unthinkable has happened. Pirates have taken a Bingtown live ship. Do you think the satraps, Chalcedean mercenaries, will help me recover her? If by chance she does fall into their hands, do you think they will respect a Bingtown claim to her? She will be taken to Jamalia City as if she were plunder and kept there. Think but a moment of the Rainwild River, and you know what that would mean. I need your help. Bingtown, please, I beg you, stand firm with me. I need money and a ship to go after my birthright. She had not meant to say those words. Her mother gave her a stricken glance of disbelief. Her thought was plain. Althea was making a public claim on the ship as her own. She had meant to speak for her family, but her heart had chosen the words.
Sure, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, like you said, that last little bit kind of turns it into a family plight then. And someone yells out, the Vestrit family brought that on themselves, someone shouted. They let their family ship sail with a foreigner as captain. Shame on them. She talks a good wind, she does, but whom did she ride in with? Davad Restart. And gentlemen, we all know where he stands. Her wild talk is a new trader trap. If we rise in defiance of the satrap, we cannot expect him to be fair with us. We need to reason with the satrap, not set ourselves up against him. Some were nodding and muttering agreement. Why don't the damn Chalcedean patrol boats go out to rescue the Vivacia? Isn't that what all the new tariffs are about? Paying them to run off the pirates? Why don't they get out there and show us what our money bought? She talks against Chalcedeans, but her own sister married one, someone else sneered. Kylehaven can't help his blood. He's a good captain, someone defended him. Ephraim Vestrit left his ship in that foreigner's hands, another added. He lost it. That's a Vestrit problem, not a Bingtown crisis. If they want the ship back, let them pay ransom on it. Althea stood on tiptoe, craning to identify the speaker. Greg identifies him as Trader Fro. Never stood up for anything in his life, pinches his coins so tight they come away with his fingerprints on them. As if he had heard the words, the Trader Fro asserted, I'm not giving her one copper shard of mine. They shamed their ship and Saw took it from them. I heard she was being used as a slaver. Any live ship worth her salt would rather turn pirate than that. You can't mean that, Althea was outraged. You can't dismiss her like that. There is a boy on that ship, my nephew. However you regard his father, you cannot deny he is a trader's stock. The ship herself is Bingtown. And then the order keepers get there.
Yes. So things have kind of devolved. It was almost good. People were sitting and listening.
It was close. And then it was not.
It became about her, and it was more important that she gets her ship back instead of the greater good for all. And that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. That's not as compelling of an argument as she thinks it is.
But credit to her. Things start to again grow maybe more violent. Greg starts to block an order keeper to Althea. There's a crash of kindling. It was the spark in the kindling. A bench overturned with a crash because someone yells out, the council is recessed. No one is to speak right now. You do not even have the council's permission to speak. She is not the traitor for the Vestrit family. In the interest of order, she must go. So she's trying to prevent any fighting or physical action being taken when she announces that she will go quietly. I didn't come here to cause trouble. I came here to ask for help. I've asked. I also came to stand up in favor of the Tenira family. It is wrong for Ophelia to be detained at the tariff dock. They have no legal claim on any of her cargo. If any of you want to help the Vestrit traders, you know where our home is. You will be welcomed and you will hear our full tale. But I won't be named as the one at fault for a riot in the traders' concourse. I'm leaving now. Peacefully. And to Greg, she says, stay here. Maybe the council will hear you out. So just let me go.
Right. She's going to go wait outside.
Head up and unescorted, she moved through the crowd. She could do no more good there tonight, and others seemed to share her opinion. Some other families started to leave as well. All over the room, the order had broken down. Traders stood in small knots, some talking quietly, others arguing with wild hand gestures and raised voices. Althea picked her way past all of them. A glance showed her that her own family had remained. Good. Perhaps they might yet have a chance to speak out officially for rescuing Vivacia. And she steps outside and sees no sign of Brashen or Amber. And reluctantly, she turns her steps towards Davad's carriage. It was nearly at the end of the long line of carriages. So she makes her peace. We've kind of talked ad nauseum about it, just kind of ragged on her a bit for adding that end, so I won't add too much more.
I do find it really interesting that things are awful. This was not a good reaction. And she's kind of like, no. That's all I could do.
Yeah.
There's not even an acknowledgement of like, this is my fault. I shouldn't have. Like, there was that little line of like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But how can I help it if that's what my heart wanted to say?
I know.
There's no.
She ruined her chance of her family officially speaking up for help.
Yes.
She ruined the chance of the Teniras talking any further about it because she just stirred up so much trouble with her announcement of like treason.
Yeah, not great.
So close. So close, Althea. It was very stirring. Good speech. Didn't quite stick the landing.
Yeah, but again, it's that Vestrit self-centeredness. Mm-hmm. Main character syndrome.
So she heads outside towards Davad Restart's carriage to wait for the others. And the team, old and placid as they were, snorted restively and pawed. She sees the driver has vanished. Blood ran down the door of the carriage, thick and black in the twilight. A slaughtered pig, its throat cut wide, lolled halfway out of the carriage window. Spy was written in blood over the Restart coat of arms. Althea felt dizzy with disgust. And behind her, the meeting seems to have wrapped up, so people were coming out.
Everybody's leaving now, so everybody's about to see this. I don't understand this reaction. Althea just spent, 4 or 5 pages talking about how embarrassed Davad made her feel and how he was doing all the wrong things and he's siding with the bad side. He is not making good choices. She heard somebody say that he's a liar, or at least the area where he was sitting, he's a liar and was helping the new traders. And then other people in her speech discredit her because she came with him, and that means she has to be working with the new traders.
This is a bit far, though, leaving a slaughtered pig.
No, but how she reacts to that afterwards.
Oh, to stuff that we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah. Okay. So she just spent all that time. We're keeping in mind, she knows he's not well liked, not a good person. He doesn't stand for anything that she believes in and will not help her in any way that is tangible to getting her ship back. And yet,
well, Ronica reaches her side first, saying that the council adjourned. They'll have a private meeting to see if they can hear. Saw's breath. Poor Davad. How could anyone do this to him? From somewhere, Greg appeared. After one horrified look, he took Althea's arm. Come away. I'll see that you and your family get safely home. You don't want to be involved in this. No, she agreed grimly. I don't. Neither does Trader Restart, I'll wager. I won't abandon him here, Greg. I can't. Althea, think. This isn't someone's impulsive nastiness. Someone planned this. This pig was brought here for this purpose before anyone spoke to the council. It's a serious threat. That's why I can't let Davad face it alone. Greg, he is an old man with no real family left. If his friends abandon him, he's alone. Maybe he deserves to be alone. Greg kept his voice low. He kept glancing at the knot of gawkers forming around the carriage. He obviously wanted to get away from it. How can you accept how he thinks, Althea? How can you let him drag your family into this? I don't accept how he thinks. I accept who he is. He is a wrong-headed old fool, but he has been like an uncle to me for as long as I can remember. Whatever he has done, he doesn't deserve this. She looks past him and sees Davad approaching with Trader Daw, arms linked. Daw sees the pig first and unlinks arms and runs away from Davad.
Yeah.
And Davad comes up saying, "What's this? I don't understand this. Why? Who has done this? Where is my driver? Did the coward run away? Then look at the leather. It's ruined. It's completely ruined." He sent a bewildered look around the crowd that had gathered. In the back, someone guffawed loudly. Others simply stared. No one expressed horror or disgust. They were watching him to see what he would do. Althea's eyes traveled from face to face. They seemed strangers to her, more foreign than Jamalian new traders. She did not know Bingtown anymore. So she asks Greg to take her family away while she stays and helps Trader Restart. She has empathy, that's why she's doing it.
Whatever. I think of myself as a pretty empathetic person.
You are to real people. You are savage to book characters.
Fair enough. I do not understand Althea's thought process in this. Her safety is at risk. And she can have somebody ask somebody to get Davad a ride home too. She doesn't need to be the one directly involving herself in this.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there are other ways.
That's who she is, though.
It is who she is, but there are other ways to go about this that don't put her directly in danger.
Yeah. But if she did that, it would feel out of character, in my opinion.
I guess. But it just, I don't know. And I hate that. I hate that Greg brings up the valid point of how can you accept him and Davad's ways.
Yeah,
and
the way he thinks.
Yeah, the way he thinks. And Althea's like, I don't accept the way he thinks. I just accept him. So you do accept the way he thinks because you're allowing.
That's a part of him.
Yeah. Like, this isn't, he likes blue and you like red. Oh, well.
This is something that I don't know what Robin Hobb is going after. And I feel like it's a late 90s, early 2000s kind of sentiment of loyalty and friends come first.
Maybe.
As opposed to how I've grown into an adult and thought like family can get cut off. Sometimes people are just that bad of people and you don't need them in your life and toxic, or friends can get cut off. You don't have to stick by them because you've known them a long time.
Yeah.
If they're awful, don't stick with them. And I really wonder if Robin Hobb is going after this is a character flaw for the Vestrits, or if this is a good thing, because in the whole last book, Ronica goes through staying close to Cyrilla, who kind of upended her whole life and stole their thing, to clear Davad's name as a traitor. So
Yeah.
I don't understand this plot point as like a good thing, and I don't know if it's a kind of a moral point that Robin Hobb is trying to put in here as like this is a virtuous family and these are traits that virtuous families have, or if this is just
I
a
guess
Vestrit trait.
that's a good point. I feel like at least in American society, for sure, we can speak on because that's who we are. It is more of a modern idea that if there is a strong disagreement in morals, it is okay to then cut ties with that person. It doesn't have to be a dramatic thing, and it doesn't need to be this like big burning of bridges. It's just a recognizing that fundamentally you are very different people, and if one of you thinks that slavery is okay and the other doesn't, that's not really a reconcilable difference.
Yeah.
And especially when they have direct impact on making slavery okay and you don't, of course you're going to cut that off. Why would you continue to support somebody who does that? And I think especially because, I don't know, I guess I don't know how things were in the early 2000s or whenever in the 90s, but I think especially in today's age where things feel more serious, we're a lot more connected in the world because of the prevalence of social media. It's just a different sentiment altogether of like, actually your morals do matter. And if they don't align with me, I don't really need to spend time with you, because we're
different people.
Yeah, on a fundamental level, we do not agree. So why would we want to hang around each other? Yeah. And that's fine. Like you said, some people are toxic and bad, and that doesn't make you a bad person for excusing yourself from their presence. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, so for the case of this book, it's just kind of like I can suspend my disbelief that this is what she would do. It's just in the back of my head all the time about the Vestrits in general. Like, why?
Yeah. my 2020s morals doesn't allow me to accept this as something that's virtuous of the Vestrits. Drop them. Your friends are right. Drop them.
So Althea stays behind, tells Greg to help her family out, and the family does go. I don't think any of you should have to deal with this, Greg says acidly, as Althea's like, I don't think Malta should have to deal with this. And Greg's like, none of you should. But he was too well-bred to refuse. So Althea is there by herself. Calm down as she takes Davad's arm. Don't let them see you are rattled. Heedless of the blood, she jerked the door of the carriage open. The stubborn carcass rode in the window still. It was a runty pig. No one had sacrificed good stock to do this. In death, its bowels had relaxed. Althea reminded herself that blood was no stranger to her. She'd seen far too much slaughter in the barrens to be put off by a bit of pig blood now. Boldly, she seized the dead animal's hind legs. A sharp tug freed it from the window. She let it drop to the street. She glanced at Davad, who stared at her wide-eyed. Blood and offal had soiled the front of her robe. She ignored it. Can you climb up into the box? She asked. He shakes his head. Then you'll have to ride inside. The other seat is almost clean. Take my handkerchief. The scent on it will help. So she slams the door after him as he climbs in. He's not really saying much. And she climbs up and takes the reins. She kicked off the brake and shook the reins hopefully. The horses started moving forward at an uncertain walk. From sailor to driver, that's the girl for Greg. Think of the money they'll save on hired help, cried someone in the crowd. Someone else hooted loudly in appreciation. Althea kept her eyes forward and her chin up. She slapped the reins on the team and they lurched into a trot. She trusted they'd know the way home, even in the gathering dark. She wasn't sure if she did anymore. That last line just seems to me as a play on she doesn't even know who the Bingtowners are anymore, and
Right.
where have the morals gone astray, and everything like that. Which, fair. People were standing around to see what Davad was going to do and not being disgusted by the act.
Right. It is really hard because obviously Davad is still friends with most of the traders, and I think a lot of them are doing business deals with him with the new traders, but he does get stuck with the onus of being the bad one.
It seems from the rumors that he's almost preying upon the destitute old trader families
Right.
to line his pockets.
I mean, yeah. And after we just went on the whole rant about how he's like morally corrupt and a bad person,
Right.
now I'm defending him. But I do think that there are people in the society, in these families, who are just as bad, if not worse.
Oh, I'm sure.
But he's the only one with no family to back him up.
Yeah.
And he's a social outcast. He doesn't follow societal rules in like the human contract sort of sense of what proper etiquette is. And so, I don't know.
The easy target.
Yeah, he is an easy target. He's unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's his fault and not anybody else's that things are the way that it is. Everybody needs a scapegoat or scape pig.
And it is awful that did happen. But, man, things could have been handled differently.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. You know what I mean? I don't think anybody deserves dead animals and blood written on their stuff ever. But he isn't making good choices. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm disappointed in you, Davad Restart.
I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
Interesting chapter.
Yeah. I have to ask. So the chapter name is
Wishes Fulfilled.
Wishes Fulfilled. What was Althea's wish that got fulfilled?
I'm not sure. Because this is a reaction to Wintrow's wish fulfilled, right?
Right.
And maybe Althea's wish is to see Brashen again. I'm not sure. Or a chance to speak.
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe it was that she wanted to be heard at the Trader Council.
And she was.
And just like Wintrow's wish of getting rid of his father.
More than she bargained for there.
The monkey's paw wish.
Yeah.
You can be heard at the Traders Council, but you're going to start a disruption, and also all the people that you don't want meeting are going to come together and make it really awkward for you.
So now, I know this isn't the case. However, did Amber do it?
Ooh.
I'm pretty sure she would never kill
an animal
to do this, or Brashen would not do this either, because
Brashen for sure wouldn't.
He doesn't care about Davad Restart at all. But it's set up kind of like that.
That's true.
At the beginning, Brashen and Amber are there. She is staring daggers and hatred at Davad Restart. They go in, and Althea comes out expecting to see Brashen and Amber because they wouldn't really be welcome in the hall, and they're nowhere to be found. And then she finds the dead pig in Davad's carriage.
No, I definitely don't think Amber's capable. I think it is a really good red herring.
Yeah, it's straight up set up like that, I think.
Yeah, but no, I think it's definitely whoever was like, "You're a liar. You did work with the new traders." It was that person. Whoever that was, that's who did it. Maybe we find out who that is later, but I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we have to deal with the aftermath of that, and probably a lot of people being angry at Althea later.
Yeah.
And Wintrow being upset at everything.
True. I kind of wish I had a little bit more Althea in me. I wish I could do ridiculous things that are selfish and just walk away being like, well,
I did all that I could do.
I did what I could. That wasn't so bad. As there's chaos in my wake, I wish that was how I reacted to situations that didn't go exactly how I had planned out in my head.
Oh, thank you so much for tuning in this week. Do you have any final thoughts on the chapter?
I feel bad. I was kind of whiny this week, but
I mean, both of us were very harsh on all of the characters, right?
Yeah.
I
It's because
just
we love them.
after the fun adventure of last chapter, and don't get me wrong, it was a Kennit adventure and he's an awful person, but like action happened and it was a fun
Yeah.
adventure. All of the really whiny characters showed up in this one, and it
Yeah.
just wasn't as fun.
Yeah, that's fair. It's back to the politics and less action.
I do like politics in books, don't get me wrong.
No, yeah, agree.
I really do, and it's very interesting this time around to read closer into that, because I know the first time I read it, for example, I paid attention to what was happening, but I was like, things are happening in other places that are more interesting.
Right.
And I don't know. This time it's interesting to see and pay attention to all the different kind of nuances
Yeah.
of opinions of things, but it's just not quite as interesting talking about it in depth.
That's fair. Yeah. Less action going on. I do think it's nice though to have characters where we're able to kind of rag on them and they have like
Yeah.
enough roundness
True.
and depth to them that they do have these sides where we can nitpick and be like, wow, that's a bad decision. But like, they have to, right? It's the Achilles heel. There has to be something, the hero's onus or whatever. There has to be something to drive the plot. So obviously they're all going to make bad decisions, even if we want them to make better decisions. But
Yeah,
we still get to complain about them because it's our podcast and
and suck it up. Is that what that shrug was?
I will be a little Althea. This is Saw told me it's okay. So
Well, if you guys have things to complain about, please let us know. isfitshappy@gmail.com, or go to our website, isfitshappy.com, and you can find the links to all of our social medias there. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I said already, YouTube, I was missing out on, and Threads. There we go.
yes.
I do this like every week. You'd think I have that completely memorized.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Well, if the social medias would stop changing their names.
True. I did just, go back to saying Twitter instead of X now because it's annoying.
Well, everybody knows what you're talking about.
True. I wonder if somebody out there doesn't.
Well, maybe somebody
They've
born in
only-
like 2012.
They've only known it as X. It hasn't even been a year yet.
All the 12-year-olds out there. Sorry.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
See you guys next week. All right, now we get to talk about the things you guys have brought to our attention. We're going to start off with a comment from Facebook from listener Cookie Baker.
Yeah, so Cookie Baker is kind of talking about, this is about last episode, our Kennit episode, and talking about how it's refreshing to hear it from us and think about it as if we were reading it the first time. Because we talked about that a little bit of like our first impressions, or
Yeah.
talk about that. So thanks for that. But also mostly speaking about Sa'adar in their comment here, how he seemed truly a broken man, and is recalling what Fitz spoke about in the first trilogy, that some people after torture fight everything and some people just back down from any sort of confrontation, and thinks that's kind of Sa'adar's track.
Right, with Etta and Wintro and I guess Kennit previously, whenever they fight or hit him, attack him, he kind of just takes it and doesn't retaliate.
Yeah.
It just, he's stunned and he doesn't stop speaking back to them. I think Cookie Baker also says this is probably because of his stubbornness.
Yes.
But there is that sense of being stunned when he is attacked, which is a really good point and a great tie-in to Fitz's analogy that that's a trauma response.
Yeah, people react differently. Cookie Baker also states that we do know Sa'adar was a priest who refused to accept the new teachings of the Jamalian monastery about slavery, so his strength and his weakness have always been that such stubbornness of always believing he alone knows what is right. He seems to me like a broken person. Rest in peace, Sa'adar. So it's kind of a sum up of who he is, which I thought was nice. So thank you very much for that comment.
Yeah, it is. It is a good point. And even though we don't usually agree with Sa'adar's points and think that he's not that great of a person, he's still a really rounded character and kind of tragic in a lot of ways.
He is, yeah.
Because he really is just kind of a cog in the machine of life in this book. And I don't know, it's really sad for him, I suppose.
Yeah. Cookie Baker, I do want to mention, also finished out their comment with something about Ygritte and Kennit. They also appreciated the story about the hidden island where Kennit grew up, the treasure island, Ygritte's lost treasure, just kind of that like fantasy story inside the larger narrative that we were also talking about.
Yeah.
And they said that Ygritte has also been to Claris with Paragon, and they advised him on how to gain his kingdom, so the past cycle of violence that spurs Kennit to try to erase and rewrite has been helped along by the Claris folk. I don't remember that. Do you?
I don't, but
It almost sounds familiar.
yeah.
And I just don't. The only time I can think of Paragon and Claris mentioned together is in the last trilogy when they go there.
I'm sure we'll find out from Paragon. He must tell the story.
Yeah.
Because Kennet's not going to tell us.
That's true.
So that would leave Paragon, and I don't think it would be talked about in a different trilogy.
I'll be on the lookout for that, because if it's true, if Ygritte did go to Claris and get his fortune told or something like that, and maybe that's what spurred Kennit to visit Other Island to get a prophecy and like belief in that sort of thing, then that is very interesting development, because then the Claris people, the whites there, kind of directed Ygritte down a dark path.
Do you think, if this really did happen, do you think that means that Kennit is a catalyst of sorts because he was able to get rid of Ygritte? Or was that the plan all along? They knew he wouldn't survive?
No idea. That's wild speculation.
It is.
But I've said before in other questions that you've had like that everyone is kind of a catalyst, right?
Yeah.
Just depends on their strength.
Saw agrees with you.
Yes. So thank you, Cookie Baker, so much for that comment.
Yes.
We'll be on the lookout for the Paragon, Claris, Ygritte connection.
Yeah, and speaking of talking about Sa'adar, we had a listener, Anna, write in to tell us about her theories and thoughts on Sa'adar. Anna poses the question of, if Sa'adar had stayed on Key Island, do you think he could have teamed up with Kyle to make a dream team to go against Kennit?
Or if he would just kill
Or would
Kyle.
he just kill Kyle? Yeah.
I want to make some good points here of just like maybe his hatred of Kennit and the desire to own Vivacia would supersede his hatred of Kyle. But I don't know if I believe it. Just from what we've had, they seem to be kind of equal. And never really distinguished between the two. He never really had to weigh one or the other, right? I feel like if he was prevented from seeing Kyle for a long, long time, maybe he could get over the hatred of Kyle and start to think of like, what am I going to do when I get off this island? But I don't know if he could ever team up with Kyle.
I feel like he could use Kyle as a means to an end.
Maybe.
And maybe in my mind, the way this would work is only if he gets imprisoned next to Kyle.
Yeah,
by
Dej and Sayla.
Yes, because that's what the threat was if he tried to mess with Kyle.
That's fair.
So if they're chained together, I feel like then they make a truce of sorts, because now they're in the same position. Sa'adar maybe gains a little bit more sympathy for Kyle. Kyle is willing to work with anybody to get out of this situation.
I can buy into that. I could see that being the only way.
So I think in that case, they would work together and somehow get out and could maybe take Kennit on. But I don't know, because Kennit's pretty wily. He could take a lot. He killed like 8 people in a fight against himself when he was half dressed and
True.
like was not
He's a good
expecting
swordsman.
them. So last book, was it? Yeah. I don't know. I think he could take them. So even if they would be a good team and could get over their differences to work together, I don't know. But thank you, Anna, for giving that idea and giving us a chance to think about it. Also, Anna talks about how
it makes sense for Kennit to feel scorn and his disgust of his mother and going back home.
right, because those were places that didn't keep him safe and they should have.
Yes. His mother reminds him of his lost innocence. To me, it's like saying, that bad thing couldn't happen to me now. I'm not that helpless boy anymore. But being there, it makes him feel more vulnerable than he's used to. It makes him revert to that, which is kind of what we discussed. And I like the way that it's put here. So
yeah, and obviously, like Anna says, Kennit hates being vulnerable. So yeah, it was a good point that there's definitely that deeper thing going on there, and the disgust is definitely a protective layer to try to disguise the hurt. And finally, Anna says that she's very excited to talk about next book in juxtaposition with what happens to Althea and how Wintrow and Etta both excuse that atrocity, and how in this chapter we had so clearly Etta standing up for Ankle and Wintrow as well, and both of them are characters so far that are willing to stand up and go against the crowd for things that they believe in and when they know things are wrong.
Right.
So it'll be really interesting to see why they choose not to do that when it comes to Kennit and Althea.
Well, we'll have to remember and see it, I guess, and talk about it. But when Etta asks Althea, she believes her instantly.
Yes.
When she answers. And then Wintrow believes after Etta says that it's true.
Right, which, but whatever.
We'll get there. But
we will get there.
It will be interesting to compare the two situations. Like Anna says, and you pointed out, they do stand up for those who can't stand up for themselves quite often and seem to have general empathy. Etta's is a little bit behind a more thorny exterior.
Yes. But especially when the fact that Etta does believe Althea and yet still doesn't do anything. It is kind of a weird thing, especially from what we've seen so far. So
we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah. And we will get there eventually, but yeah, it'll be good to see how that goes. So thank you, Anna, for writing in.
We had an email from Jonas as well, kind of speaking on Kennit and his attitudes, because this was a Kennit heavy chapter. We got lots of messages about Kennit, which is great.
Yes.
He's a lot of people's favorite character.
Yeah.
I won't say favorite person because I don't think I would hesitate shaking hands with anybody who called him their favorite person. But
yeah. He's an interesting and compelling character. Yeah. He just is. And he is the better version of Regal, in my opinion, because I think Regal is just as pitiful and like worthy of that pity. I think they both had things happen in their childhood and people near them that didn't protect them the way they should have. You know, there's a lot going on. Obviously, Kennit had it. It's very different what happened to them. But I do think that Kennit is more likable.
Yeah.
He's a
we get Kennit's head as well,
true.
Which kind of makes him more unlikable. Yeah, so he's like a little bit opposite in that, because I'm sure if we were in Regal's head and his point of view, he would be more likable.
I don't know.
I think he would.
I don't, because he's like he's very, I don't know the word.
Regal truly believes in himself, though. Like, truly believes that he's doing the right things.
No, yeah, I agree. But like,
Kennit
he
knows
also
he's being duplicitous.
doesn't like anybody that isn't in his ideal of normal.
Sure.
So I feel like in his head wouldn't be that much better. It'd be like getting a Kyle point of view.
Okay.
In some ways. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he would be a little bit more likable. Depends on how self-aware he is, I guess.
But anyways, Jonas, we kind of tangent here. Jonas is focusing more on Kennit as a child, and our brief discussion about that and how we were comparing young Kennit to a Malta-like character, and Jonas more sees him as an energetic boy, climbing trees with full of dreams and things like that. And I don't think the two exclude one another. I think what we were going for, and maybe Emma can correct me because I think she brought it up first, is that Kennit was also probably spoiled senseless.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, he was a boy running wild and carefree and loved the world and was curious about things and had big dreams about stuff. But he was an only child and told from when he was 5 years old that he was going to be a king of this island. He wasn't kept humble. And I see that with Malta as well. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you were going for, of the more spoiled, silly, but not necessarily the spiteful attitudes that Malta has.
Yeah, I definitely would agree. I think that was what I was going for, is more the spoiled aspect. But also, Malta was a normal kid too at one point. She only is this cynical because of her family circumstances of cutting her out of society, which is something she craves because that's where she gets attention.
And Wintro leaving.
That definitely had a big impact on her. Mm-hmm. But in general, I think she probably was normal. Wintro says when he left, they were really close.
Yeah.
And she was normal. So, I don't know. I think they probably are similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But Jonas says that he thinks young Kennit was, full of youthful energy and carelessness, and that still shines through in his character. We see it in his inner monologue. We see it in the way he enjoys letting his plans unfold. He still has that childlike quality of playfulness, except it now inhabits a wrecked, traumatized, and forged, battle-hardened pirate. When all those terrible things happened to young Kennit, all young optimism and idealism turned into hurt, pain, sadness, and eventually hate, resentment, and bitterness. But you can't grow that bitter without first believing in the world. And again, I truly agree with this take.
Yeah.
But I also think that he was super spoiled.
Oh, yeah. I don't think at any point Kennit was destined to be a purely good person.
His self-centered attitude did not come out of nowhere.
That's not necessarily a trauma response. That is a personality trait. And it is definitely made worse by the trauma he has suffered. But I truly believe he would not have been a good person even without the trauma.
Right.
So
Jonas also brings up a quick kind of talk about Sa'adar in this as well.
Yeah.
Saying, I'm not sure he ever believed Sa'adar would remain on Key Island. Kennit is smarter than that. Good point that the lure of Kyle might have been his one shot, but mostly I think he brought the man along so he could get some alone time with him. And we were talking about that too, and I thought, you were wondering if I thought Kennit truly believes Sa'adar would stay there.
Yeah.
And I said, I think he hoped Sa'adar would stay.
Yeah.
And didn't mind killing him at the end. I reread the passage, and Kennit was truly angry that Sa'adar wouldn't listen to him.
Yeah.
And now I've kind of revised away from this even more and saying, no, I think Kennit truly believed that Sa'adar would listen to him, because that's who Kennit is. He's supremely confident in himself and his ability to sway people with his words. And he was so happy that he was finally doing stuff, right? Mm-hmm. He was so supremely in his own element, and Sa'adar's the only one that ruined it.
Yeah, he wasn't playing the part.
Yeah. So I truly think Kennit deluded himself into thinking that it would work and he would stay. Maybe he went into the whole thing bringing the knife just in case, right?
Yeah.
Something might go wrong. I can still do this. That's the Kennit we know. He's prepared for everything. But while he was on the island, I truly think that Kennit convinced himself that everything was going correctly and Sahadar would stay.
That's fair. Yeah, I kind of think that too. It just the way that he keeps giving Sahadar every opportunity to
Fix
stay, to fix.
Very Malta-like, actually, in
Yeah,
this too.
yeah.
Play your part.
Yep, this is the play that I have set up in my head and haven't told you about. Do what I want you to. So I don't know. But I also think there is a part of him, like, he's not going to assume it will go 100% to plan.
No, yeah.
He definitely knows it's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
It just, I don't know. I don't think he was going in like, yay, a chance to kill Sahadar. That's all.
And I think while Kennit really does appreciate knowing he can do things on his own, if he was on the ship, I think you'd have just commanded someone to kill him.
Fair enough.
If he really wanted to, you know? I don't know.
Well, we'll finish Jonas's email with the question that he leaves for us. How do we imagine Kennit's voice?
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't even think about that. I don't really imagine voices when I read.
That's fair. I this is so dumb. I think of Kennit as sounding and looking just like Captain Hook, but specifically the Captain Hook from Hook with Robin Hobb, or sorry,
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams, who is the guy who plays Lucius Malfoy. I don't know his real name, but yeah, that actor. Just so silly and goofy.
That's not who plays Hook.
Isn't it?
No, it's Dustin Hoffman. The guy who plays Lucius Malfoy is Jason Isaacs.
Oh, he must do something else. No, there's a different. No, I'm thinking Peter Pan, the live action one from like the early 2000s. You know what I'm talking about? Hold on. 2003.
Okay. I see.
That's Lucius. Jason
Yes.
Isaacs, Captain Hook. Also the dad of Wendy, which apparently is always supposed to be the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't realize ever. But anyway,
That's how you picture Kennit?
that's Kennit.
Interesting. I mean, he's got the
He's like kind of
facial hair
hot.
and stuff.
He's got blue eyes. He's flamboyant. I don't know.
Interesting. A little
So-
too flamboyant for Kennit, I think.
Maybe.
Kennit is refined. But I can see the general look.
Yeah. Sorkor is definitely Smee too. I don't that they're it's forever. That's just who they are.
But in terms of Jonas's question, I think more of a genteel, well-bred, smooth talker is how I picture Kennit. I don't really have a specific voice, but not typical pirate.
No yo-ho from him?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving us that to ponder. If anybody wants to write in and tell us how they either imagine Kennit to look or sound, we would love to hear your guys'
Right.
opinion. So thank you, Jonas, for that.
Jess sent in an email as well. And once again, it's about Kennit. But it's about Kennit and his mother. And she brings up the passage from early on in Ship of Magic, I think chapter 1, about his eyes and how he relates them to his mother.
Yes, I actually was thinking about this during the whole chapter, and I didn't ever find a place to say anything about it. So thank you, Jess, for writing in so that we can talk about this. But the quote is, "The only feature that displeased him were his eyes. They were his mother's eyes, pale and watery and blue. When he encountered their stare in the looking glass, she looked out of them at him, distressed and teary at his dissolute ways. They seemed to him the vacuous eyes of an idiot, out of place with the tamed face. In another man, folk would have said that he had mild blue eyes, inquiring eyes. Kennit strove to cultivate a cold blue stare, but knew his eyes were too pale even for that. Wow, harsh.
Yeah, it just says wow, harsh.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that even at the very beginning, we have these hints of this disdain he feels towards his mother, and the disdain of this watery crybaby. That's what his eyes make him think of.
And that's how he describes her later on, and that's how we meet her, right?
Right.
She's just blubbering all the time, and he doesn't know why she cries so much.
And yeah, I think it's a really good point. It's so early too. I don't know. It's so good. It's so well done.
Yeah, and he just keeps that image in his head of his mother like that.
Right. And Jess points out that it's further evidence of that vulnerability that we talked about. He feels the vulnerability when he faces his mother and her feelings and his past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot of talk about Kennit, and it kind of all wraps up, and it seems like most of you guys agree with us that he doesn't like going back to the island because he feels vulnerable. It brings him back to that childlike state. And that was when bad things happened, and he feels out of control there. And he has plans, as we talked about too in that chapter, to, once his mother passes away, to bring control back to that place, to bring a kingdom there and build up the defenses and make it secure again after he has made the manor, the big house, exactly like it was.
Right. And I think the reason that he's putting that off until the death of his mother is because he doesn't feel like he'll ever be able to feel secure with her there. She's always a loose end. She's always something people can go after him for.
Yeah, so he wants to keep it secret until she's gone.
Yeah. And I think that in his own way is how he is trying to protect her.
Yeah, I think so too.
He doesn't want her to face what she did again, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think
he does steer the conversation away when he does scare her with talking about maybe moving to the big house. And
right.
Yeah, he's not careful of her feelings at all, but he doesn't go out of his way to distress her.
Right. And he doesn't force her to bend to his will like he does with everybody else.
Right.
When she didn't want to go to the house, he's like, okay, you're right. This is actually better for you. So I don't know.
Thank you, everybody, for writing in.
Yeah, it's always good to hear you guys' thoughts. Thanks, guys.